happy tenant is a good tenant.
We did not intend to be in the property management business.
The property management industry is very sharing.
We're providing housing for human lives.
And life happens to everybody.
You don't manage as many properties as I do without the stories.
Like 6 grown men jump back like, what the hell was that? Something's about to eat us.
You're listening to the Property Manager Podcast, brought to you by Buildium. Real stories, real people. I'm Tony Milo from Buildium, and this is the Property Manager Podcast. Welcome to the Property Manager Podcast. Tony Milo here from Buildium, and as always, I am with Rachel Graham, Director of Marketing, and Fred Tracy, Video Production, Multimedia Extraordinaire.
Good morning, Tony.
Good morning.
Thank you for that intro.
I think you made Fred blush.
I think I did. And I have not even had one cup of coffee. Let me just make that clear to everybody. No, but in any case, let's talk about the interview that we recently did with Briana Parra from the Brazill team out of Las Vegas, Nevada. One of the things that struck me was how much Vegas is really changing. Regulations are changing. Rents are increasing every year. Of course, a whole bunch of tech companies are moving there, and it's really a market that has evolved more quickly than most. What are some of the things that are on your radar for that market, Rachel?
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, when we think about Vegas, they've really branded themselves as being, very casino focused. So it's very focused on what happens on the Strip. But what we're seeing, and Robin on our team spends a lot of time looking at this data, we're seeing a lot of companies move away from the larger primary markets like LA and San Francisco, Boston, New York, in favor of some of these secondary markets just because real estate for them is so much cheaper and the people that they are employing are able to find more affordable housing. And it's sort of this, it's like a different kind of migratory pattern. Back when, the tribes would sort of follow the crops around, now people are following the jobs. And so we're seeing a lot of populations of these major cities radically shift as companies move into smaller markets, comparatively smaller markets like Vegas and Nashville and other places.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper. You ever been to Vegas, Fred?
Yeah, 2 years ago. I went for a Buildium video shoot, interviewed some customers and how they use Buildium. And Briana was actually one of the people we interviewed. She's super nice, very, very detail-oriented. And she grew her portfolio, I think, from 40 to 200 properties at the time. And she's big into tracking every aspect of what goes on in her business, whether it's a tenant logging in, whether it's an employee doing something wrong and creating an edit log.
Yeah, definitely got that impression. She stays on top of her business. And right now you have to in the Vegas market because there are so many things that are changing, especially along the lines of regulations, which she mentioned. There are challenges around getting bad tenants out of their apartments. There are also regulation changes that make it so that property managers have to give even more notice. So it's a more challenging equation in some ways, but it's also a booming market in others. So I think maintaining that connection with people and getting quality and maintaining quality residents is still a challenge that hasn't gone away.
Does she talk about how, so in this booming market, is she finding more and more competition sort of cropping up, and how does she differentiate, or does she talk about just what she stays to stay on top of her business like nobody's business?
She's also finding that there is more and more competition, but that there are more and more people that are willing to underprice her. So, that's of course has to do with, knowing your value, crunching the numbers so that you don't offer a price that really can't support the service that you offer. I think one of the things as a property manager is knowing your worth, knowing your value, and making sure that you don't, become the cheapest option in town, because then essentially you're just not doing yourself a service, especially when you deliver a high quality product.
With everything changing so fast, property managers just keeping up with all of the changes and making sure that their fees are in compliance with the new regulations and that their processes match the new things, and then figuring out what changes they need to make in their paperwork and their documentation. So that they are as current as they possibly can be, even with that kind of rate of change.
Well, we obviously don't know Vegas as well as Briana does, so we should just get right to the episode. How about that?
Happy tenant is a good tenant.
Okay, welcome to season 2 of the Property Manager Podcast. My name is Tony Marella, and today I am joined by Briana Parra from the Brazill team. How you doing today, Briana?
Doing well. How are you, Tony?
Great. And you are talking to us all the way from Las Vegas. That's a pretty hot market these days. Lots of pun intended.
It's extremely hot here right now. It's probably 101 and it's only 8:25 in the morning here. At least it's a dry heat is what a lot of people try to say.
Yeah, I don't know if that really applies after you break like 100.
I couldn't imagine even 100 with any humidity at all. I mean, when it rains here, it definitely holds the heat in more with that humidity. So I enjoy my dry heat rather than the humid heat for sure.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what you do for the Brazill team.
So I've been with Brazill team almost 8 years. We're going on on my 8th year with the company. I pretty much oversee and run the property management division of our company. We are a full-service brokerage and real estate company and specialize in investments and investors. A lot of flipping when the market obviously crashed here. That's what our specialty was. And a lot of those portfolios that we obtained, we manage. So I oversee 3 of my staff members here, and that's really what runs our management division. And when things escalate, they come to me.
Sounds like fun. Really going back to the market in Vegas, you mentioned that, it used to be more of a flipping type of market. How are you seeing it change these days? What's happening over there?
We're seeing the market kind of balance out and transition into a normal market. Last year, if we would have done this podcast during the summer, I would have told you that it was crazy hot and nonstop. People were paying $20,000 above appraised value just because they wanted to beat out the next buyer, and they were willing to put that in the contract. Now you're seeing more of a normal market, and we're seeing buyers and sellers negotiate more, like I said, as a regular market rather than a seller's market.
So you were seeing a lot over asking. You were seeing, rents increasing. Well, and let me ask you this: like, how has that affected rents so far for you and the properties you manage?
Well, right now the market has slowed down, due to, I think, just the affordability. People are getting blown out, and now that's getting pushed into our rents. Our rents, we've seen an increase of about 10 to 15%, depending on the area, within the last 12 months, within the last 6 months. We're increasing rents like crazy, and I think the biggest part about it is our city is so fast growing, and it's not a normal market where you see little fluctuations and increases on an average, but we're seeing huge and rapid growth and then rapid decline and rapid growth and rapid decline. And it's definitely affecting our rents to where rents are going up. Owners can be a little more discerning. As far as application and qualifications go, we're seeing multiple applications on every single property, and people are getting blown out and frustrated. Properties that we're renting for maybe 900, in a older and more populated area are now renting for 200, 300 more.
Wow. Yeah, sounds like a familiar story. Living in the Boston area, we definitely have a lot of, the same overheated market that, I don't know that it's normalized yet here. People keep saying that it will. And it seems like every sort of, every April, people are saying, well, it has to level out. And it just really hasn't yet. But I think that in the back of people's minds, they're expecting it to happen soon. So, yeah, and I know that rents have continued to go up in the Boston area. So it's definitely something. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, there's actually a Wynn casino that opened up right outside of Boston. So maybe you can tell us what we have to look forward to.
I actually didn't know that. Look forward to as far as what? As far as people coming, as far as the economy, I'm not really sure what you're hinting at there. You can probably party a little later into your evening now that there's a casino.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, just curious. I guess Vegas has always been like that, right? Vegas has always was built around, the hospitality. Yeah, casinos and the hospitality industry, and that sort of impact. So, when it comes to what's going to be going on in Boston, of course, it's going to be very different having one versus several. And everybody loves a good Cirque du Soleil show. I know that I do.
The Wynn is a beautiful hotel and casino here, and they have a couple of properties here in Las Vegas. And, like you said, our economy here is really structured and based off of the casinos. That's really, I hate to say all we have here. I was born and raised, but that really is what our city thrives off of, is that tourism and our casinos. And I think recently we're starting to transition into one of those bigger cities like Boston, like LA, like San Francisco, like Chicago. We finally have professional teams here, which is amazing. And, we've always been a transient type of town where there's people in and out of, and I think that may be due to the casino industry at times. But I think a lot of people are really flocking here, due to obviously a lower cost of living compared to Chicago, New York, Boston, LA. There's no natural disasters here, although we did recently have an earthquake
Right.
that everyone was amazed with.
Was everybody okay? Was there any damage in Vegas?
No damages or anything of that nature. There were two, I believe, don't quote me there, but I believe that there were two in Southern California that went all the way through here. And I was at a restaurant with my family drinking margaritas, and I stood up, and at the same time I stood up, the whole restaurant swayed, and I wasn't sure if it was the margaritas or if it was an earthquake, and we all kind of looked at each other.
Right. But what do you do when you're drinking a margarita and an earthquake happens? Do you keep drinking margaritas, or?
You just keep rolling with it. That is our Vegas lifestyle, I guess. But yeah, I think back to the state of the conversation, we don't have natural disasters, and I think that we're finally working on diversity. There's such a huge number of different types of people here,
Right.
and we now have a medical school, which is what major cities have. Like, you've got to appeal to the outside, and I think that our population and our city and our growth in the real estate market and the rental market has increased so much because when the market crashed, all buildings stopped, right?
Right.
All rentals stopped. So there was no apartment complexes going up, no retail, no warehouses, all commercial. You see abandoned.
And I bet that transition is just, you could see it. It's it's visible. It's everywhere. And who are these people? Who is this transient population? If we go beyond the stereotype of what you would think with just Las Vegas and casinos and hospitality, who is this transient population that's appearing?
Mostly what I see coming here is people from California. I'd say that half of the people that call me are relocating. And like I said, I think that the biggest appeal to our city is the affordability in state taxes. People are sick of paying state taxes, especially in California. We don't have that here. And we're becoming more appealing, to people from other states because we're able to offer everything that their state does without that higher cost.
Right. So with all this change and all these, this new transient population arriving in Vegas, and it seems like a population that will stay there for the long haul, how are your owners evolving, and how are you helping your owners adapt to this influx?
Well, I think that most of my portfolio of owners are pretty savvy when it comes to the markets. I would say a good 80% of our portfolio are all investors, and most of them are investors that obtained these properties or acquired them through our company and through the crash of the market. So as far as evolving and changing with the influx, I don't see that happening as much. Within the rental market for our company. The biggest thing that I'm seeing is we're a little bit more discerning when it comes to application approval. We've increased our requirements for an applicant, and we're able to have a much better, I don't know if you want to say pick of the pack, but we can maybe secure a better tenant or wait out until we get a really, really strong person that we're all comfortable with approving, that meet the qualifications that we set across the board. They always say that property management should be black and white and there's no gray area, and we really try to stick to that, but sometimes there is. And sometimes you got to go with a gut, and people put something on paper, and when you actually research it, it's not really what they say.
Do you use any screening partners to help you with that?
Do we have any screening partners? We use Buildium. Buildium does our smart moves. Yep, our TransUnion smart moves. And then we have a pretty detailed rental verification that we do. And if there's a question on there that's unanswered that comes from a manager, which happens often, or something that we want more information on, we always reach out to the managers directly of a previous tenant and ask the questions and see if we can get them answered.
That's great. And within that, the solution that you're using to help screen residents, just curious, what kind of data, that TransUnion provides, do you most like to see and helps you? I know they have something called the resident score, which is something that gives you an overall score based on their qualifications. Just curious what you find the most helpful in screening.
So they do give you that score, or what they would say accept, low accept, decline, and things of that nature. I don't always abide by that because we have a certain and set qualification as far as a credit score goes. We require at least a 600 score or above. Now, obviously, we'll take a look at everything, and TransUnion and the screening that Buildium provides helps us see what's in there to pull that score down so far. And if we have a question on the report, the nice part about it is I can call TransUnion and they can explain, what's showing up. But we're able to utilize everything and their debt to income ratios that's provided through TransUnion, their eviction history, and their criminal history. But we try to take into consideration all that. We don't want to see, obviously, any evictions, no criminal history, no past due or collections with any property management, no multiple payday loans that you see that someone really can't afford their living. They're obviously living beyond their means and have been if they're pulling out multiple payday loans. That's a huge one for at least our company. And no collections with any utility companies. That should be your number one is lights and shelter. And if you can't do that, then I feel that you should move on to something that is affordable.
Right. And so obviously there's some, I can imagine you've got your pick of the best residents. But do you find that, do you think that this growth overall is going to be sustainable? And when I say growth, I mean, growth in rents that you're seeing year over year. I mean,
to be quite honest and blunt, no. We've seen a fluctuation throughout all of the years in real estate here. And I think that we're a unique market in Las Vegas. I was speaking to one of our brokers the other day, and then she's got family members where even if we're just talking about normal real estate market, the increase is a few percent each year, and you gain a little bit of equity, and that's a normal market. Ours goes up 10%, down 5%. Up 2%, down 10%.
Sure.
So I don't think that it's necessarily sustainable. I think that it will flatten out because what's happening is that people aren't able to afford it. People that were living in certain areas of town are now having to move to older areas of town or maybe less desirable areas of town because they can't afford what they're in now, but they still need that amount of space. So I think and do hope just for our city that it does flatten out a little bit there and goes back and transitions into a normal rental market at least, because it's become a little bit scary.
Right. Yeah, same thing around Boston, and and I don't know if this is true in Vegas, but in Boston, for example, because of the cost of living in Boston proper, many millennials can't afford to even think about buying a place, especially saddled by all the college debt they have. So they have to look outside of Boston, and what that winds up doing is it winds up driving them to suburbs like Lynn or suburbs like Salem and these other secondary cities that are not too far away, but have, a little bit lower cost of living. And they're also starting to shoot up as well. So curious, in Vegas, what are those, maybe there are neighborhoods, I'm not sure, if there would be a secondary city to Vegas or a tertiary city to Vegas where people would be going.
So as far as Vegas goes, I think that most people actually prefer the secondary city. So we have, it's not a city, it's an area of town. It's Summerlin and Henderson. Henderson is a city, and it's located right outside of Vegas. Pretty much anywhere in Vegas you can get to in 20 to 30 minutes. So we're not talking a long overhaul here.
Right.
But those are the more desirable areas that I've found and people are having to move more central. So the more central you get to the Strip, obviously depending on the type of property that you're living in, if you're talking high rise, that's way high cost of living.
Sure.
Because you're
Luxury.
central and on the Strip.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel that the more central that you get, the cost of living goes a little bit more lower and lower. Same with, rather than people, moving to Henderson, they're moving a little bit further, which is in the southeast side of town. They're moving a little bit further east rather than southeast because they're still a little bit closer to Henderson, but in a lower cost of living area. and what you were saying just about the Boston market there, and millennials specifically are choosing to rent because nobody can really afford to purchase a home. And that's exactly what happens here. A lot of millennials are still choosing to rent because they can't afford a down payment. Their credit's okay. Their wages are okay, but their wages haven't met the needs of the price of housing, the price of a mortgage. And they're almost now getting beat out for the price of their rent and like moving into areas that are less desirable.
Right. Yeah, that's again a huge thing I think for the whole country that we're seeing here. And in addition to just the trends that are happening as far as affordability, you've experienced some significant changes in Las Vegas around some regulations recently. Just curious, like what those are and how they've been impacting your business.
So on that note, we said that, most of our transient population, the people that relocate here from California. So it seems that Nevada is, and NRS is doing the same, and they're becoming a little bit more tenant friendly, like California. Our eviction processes have changed a little bit. They used to be when a tenant didn't pay rent, it was a 5-day pay or quit. They had 5 days to either pay their rent or surrender the property. Now that's changed from a 5-day to a 7-day. Wow. And 2 days really does make an impact on an owner. You're talking, the 7 business days. And if we got to an eviction point, you're mid to end of the month evicting a tenant the whole month with no rent and a vacancy. Another huge thing that affects our management company is a new law for late fees. So they implemented that late fees must be capped at 5% of the regular rent, regardless of what the lease agreement states. Mm-hmm. So this just went into effect in July. All of our late fees are $40 on the 4th and $50 a day after that. Well, if you're talking about a $1,200 rent, it's capped at $6,250. So if a tenant is 25 days late on their rent, that $6,250 is all that's going to come to our management company because that's a management income and within our agreement. In a normal lease agreement, that's $250 to us. So you're talking about almost that's a huge loss, $200 to $150 loss for our management income.
Right, and again, it makes it all the more critical that you get good people in there in the first place that can pay the rent and are going to be responsible, because that's it sounds like it'd take a big chunk out of your margin. And I mean, of course, you want to get people in who can afford the place anyway, and because that's just better for everyone. But that sounds like a huge challenge.
I think that it is, and we're just trying to adapt to all of the changes. There was a lot of laws with squatters because we had a really large squatter issue. There's still a lot of vacant houses here from the market crash, and they were trying to make that more owner friendly and more landlord, giving us a little bit more rights as far as removal of persons and properties that shouldn't be there. But now it's becoming more tenant friendly for people that are actually substantially occupying a home.
Yeah, it sounds like a very difficult thing for governments to balance these days, is the right kinds of regulations that will, protect people and protect the population, everybody, and also, be able to value the investors and the owners who have to, they have to make money off of these things to make them worth doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that gets me to another thing I wanted to talk about is in a market, in any market these days, there are winners and losers, and especially like a competition, a very competitive market like Vegas. Do you have any, stories or examples of how you've been able to harness the rapid growth in Vegas and maybe some other opportunities that you weren't able to jump on?
I don't really know the answer to that question. As far as examples of stories of what we've been able to harness for the growth, has there been a lot more opportunities? Absolutely. As far as missed opportunities, if we're talking in the real estate sales market, yes. I can say that there's been times where we've done a listing appointment and we stay to a standard commission percentage within our brokerage because we feel and know what our company is worth. But there's been opportunities where I have charged a percentage and got beat out by a smaller percentage because someone was willing to work for less.
Right.
And did I regret it? Maybe on a
Probably not.
couple.
No, I definitely get. I mean, we hear that all the time, and you know, I think valuing the level of the service that you're going to deliver. I mean, it's just you've got to let some of them go, right? Because if somebody's going to undercut you, then like it's not going to be worth it, and you're going to might have a hard time. You might have a hard time sort of raising the prices over time because of, you know, the price sensitivity of that particular client. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I think as a real estate agent anywhere, you have to know your worth and you have to know when to be able to say, you know what, maybe you're better suited with a different agent. But is there times when I got beat out or someone else got the listing and I could have just negotiated a little bit better? For sure. We all have those regrets and you just learn from those mistakes. But are people getting beat out by doing 1% listings? And yeah, do I think that you get what you pay for? I think so. And that's not to, you know, talk any bad about any other real estate agent in Las Vegas. It's not very difficult anymore to sell a home here. But there are certain procedures that should be followed. And I think that we can do that to the fullest, and we know what our worth is here.
Yeah, that's a great response. And another thing too that I remember that we talked about was that I thought was pretty unique and unique to the Vegas market was the amount of relos that are happening. And I think that was like an opportunity that you were able to jump on. What was it again? There was like a relo that happened, like a company that relocated all their staff.
Yes, Synergy Blue. So it's they are a skill-based gaming company, and one of our agents was able to secure their commercial lease in a big building over in the south side of town, and we have helped relocate all their employees. So they were here, and our team has helped relocate all of them. So as each one comes, we're allowing them, we're just kind of filtering it between all of us as agents and assisting them in finding a home here, and in hopes of, you know, obviously they call us in the future, but that has definitely been fun, and learning about their company and seeing the relocation. And, you know, on the topic of the growth, you know, in the past 5 years, there was no building. Now we're seeing tons of building and tons of new retail and tons of warehousing. Everything's back up and running. You know, the commercial market here is responding right with the real estate market. It
seems like it's something that's, you know, not just the instance that that you've experienced, but that it's happening, you know, broadly across Vegas with, you know, other companies. So it's, I don't know if you've seen that in the market as well.
Yeah, I mean, Google just broke ground here. We've got Amazon that now has a huge hub here. So we're seeing tons of people relocating for that. You know, and back to, we're trying to really transition to a big city. We're building stadiums. We finally Google's breaking ground, right? So now we have a tech kind of portion that people could appeal to and relocate to. Zappos is huge here. I don't know if you know anything about Tony at Zappos, but they're huge within our community and help quite a lot here with the community.
Zappos has a great reputation. They treat their people really well. That's like the reputation they have. They treat their people extremely well.
They truly do. I've been to many events. They're he's an amazing man for sure. And he definitely cares about the community here, I've seen. And you know, I think that they've partnered with Amazon as well. So I think that's a huge thing for our economy here.
Yeah, that's great to get an inside scoop on that stuff. So really, one last thing I wanted to ask you here is, you know, obviously you've been in Vegas for a while now. You've seen the ups and the downs, and you've seen the boom happen, and you've really gone through those transitions and continue to go through them. What is your advice for other property managers, you know, caught in a similar situation?
Well,
you don't know where to start.
You know, I think that in property management, being ethical and morally sound is the best advice I can give to anyone. Be upfront and honest with your owners. Be upfront and honest with your tenants, because the only thing that's going to happen if you don't is you're going to get caught in the middle of that. Lawful isn't always moral, but I think that if you can find a balance between both and being ethical within that, that's the best thing for you as a property manager.
Amazing advice. And I truly thank you, Briana, for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been a pleasure. A lot of great insights from this convo. And I definitely hope to have you on the show again at some point.
So most of the episodes, like I always talk about how the epic stories are my favorite part. What's funny about this one is that there's a lot of her epic story that we are a family show here at the Property Manager Podcast.
Right, we're definitely PG-13 at most.
Briana in particular had some really good stories.
She did. We knew that going into it. It's Vegas. She's seen some stuff. So with that said, here is the G-rated story from Briana.
We see some great and heartfelt stories, but mostly we see crazy within the market here in Las Vegas. So it was really, I have heartfelt families that I love and that I get really sad when they leave as tenants. But as far as heartfelt experience as a property manager, it would definitely be when we find an abandoned dog, because we're all dog lovers here within our company and animal lovers. And recently, probably within, I want to say 4 months ago, our field representative was out at one of our properties and found a pit bull. And he was the sweetest pit bull and so cute. And she didn't want to leave him, and animal control wouldn't come and get him because they felt that he wasn't abandoned. And it was an abandoned property. So we took him to the vet, found out that he was blind, and found a permanent home for him, and just kind of reached out to all of our resources here. We have some tenants that work within rescue teams and found a good home for him.
I'm a dog person. Solid story right there. Definitely not as funny as the other ones that we cut, but fun fact, Briana's company was actually approached to do a reality TV show. They witnessed some crazy stuff. They turned it down because of privacy reasons. But Tony, I think there's something there for us one day down the line.
Yeah, let's go. Let's start a reality TV show for property managers called Property Manager Confessions.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
All right, so that just about does it for us today. Hope you enjoyed this interview with Briana Parra. As always, if you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, because we love to get those ratings. And also, if you are in Vegas or you're in a secondary market like Vegas, we want to hear from you. We want to understand what your direct experience is like, how things are going in property management for you and your team. So as always, thank you, Rachel and Fred. You guys are great. And I'm going to go get a cup of coffee now. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope you have a good one, and see you next time.